It's 1 o'clock. Let me make sure I'm off of mute. So I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. As long as, commissioners, are you guys ready?
It just lost us.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I will call the meeting to order, and I see that Commissioner Wilkins and Commissioner Weatherall are there, so we have a quorum. Let's go into 2.0, which is additions and revisions to the agenda. Any additions or revisions?
Nope.
You're good, Leslie?
Yes.
I'll give Sherry a second in case she just stepped out. It looks like a second ago. Any additions or revisions, Sherry?
Sorry, people think they can come in here. No.
Okay. So with that, we can go directly into 3.0, which is correspondence and public comment. We'll start with public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand, which for folks who are on the Zoom platform, there's a little, if you go down to and click at the bottom, there's a place where you can click on participants, and a thing slides out to the right-hand side, and there's a place there that you can raise your hand, or you're also just able, we're pretty informal, so you can cut in as well if that's easier. For folks who are dialing in on this phone, to unmute, you just need to push *6, and that will unmute your phone. So again, if you're calling in and not on the, didn't dial in through your computer, if you hit *6, then that'll unmute your phone to be able to provide comment. We just ask that you give your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comments? I'll look and see if anybody's raising their hand. Okay, I don't see any at this point, so if folks feel like they want to jump in later, obviously feel free to do so. In terms of correspondence, we have quite a few things, and they're significantly long, most of them. And so I will just summarize these. These will be part of the county court's packet. And so if you want to read the entire letter of any of these, those will all be available online. The first comes from Mike McCarter, who's the president of Move Oregon's Border. In essence, saying that the Gilliam County clerk had denied a request to circulate a petition in Gilliam County, that they are refiling this weekend and asking basically the county court to intervene and put an advisory question on the November ballot. And again, this is regarding moving the Idaho border. So that is the first one. It's got a bunch of links and things like that. So folks are interested in that, they can see that online. The second one comes from, Amanda Hendricks from Country Massage here in Condon. Says, Dear Gilliam County Court, thanks so much for your support of Country Massage during the COVID-19 pandemic. As a licensed massage therapist, I prioritize the health and well-being of my clients. Since closing in March, I have kept up to date on CDC, federal, and state recommendations for reopening my business safely. The funds I have received from the Gilliam County Small Business Stabilization Grant Program will be used to assist me in the financial burden of reopening with increased infection control precautions and lost income. And then she goes on to talk about what she spent it on. She said, this will really make a difference for me and my success as a small business upon returning to work. The Gilliam County Court's commitment to the community makes me proud to call this place home. Amanda Hendricks, Country Massage owner. That was nice. Then we have two, I think I've got them both in here. Yeah, there are two emails from Mr. Les Ruark. One is actually regarding item 5.1 that we'll be discussing later in the meeting regarding in-house economic development. I'll try to summarize it, but folks, again, if you want to read the whole thing, it'll be on the website. This is pretty lengthy, but in essence, Les is asking us to slow down on the decision-making regarding economic development, and consider engaging in discussion with the Port of Arlington prior to moving forward, in essence, I think is probably the best way to sum it up. So he's got a couple of suggestions on here as far as what that relationship might look like, including perhaps creating an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, so that it's clear what the how the responsibilities would be split. So anyway, as I said, it's about a 3-page long email, and so I won't read the whole thing, but for folks who are interested, that'll be available as part of the core packet. The second one has to do regarding the action or regarding the furlough of the community development coordinator's position and Les's opposition to that. So that one will also be included on as part of the packet. And then finally, Mayor Buffton from Arlington had also weighed in. There was a chain. Les's email began a chain. There was multiple people on the email, and Jeff, Mayor Buffton, wrote in as well. His is much shorter, so I will go ahead and read that one. He said, I've been following this from early on. Again, this is in regards to the economic development structure, item 5.1. He said, I've been following this from early on, and I have to agree with Les that this is an opportunity to slow down and re-examine the goals of this endeavor. I think we're a small enough county that we should as a whole be able to achieve the desirable outcome for economic growth with the tools available, such as the port manager already filling this niche. Maybe consider to set aside any issues between the county and the port, have a roundtable and lay out the goals and needs and work as a team, and maybe that much stronger. My 2 cents, sincerely, Mayor Buffton. So again, all of those will be part of the court packets. If you want to read the whole thing, please, those will be available online. Let's see, let's move into 4.0, which is the consent agenda.
Hey, Judge Farrar, before you go on, this is Catherine Reiner, City Administrator. Based on those emails, can the city weigh in when we talk about economic development, since we just got those this morning? And I have also Councilor Tom Fatlin on the call too. So if you, I think it all started with the letter from the city. And so if you have questions or want us to say what our rationale was behind that request, would be glad to speak at that period.
That sounds great. I think that would be fantastic. Okay, so let's go into consent agenda.
Did you have any questions, Commissioner Weatherall, or comments?
I did not.
Okay. In that case, then I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of May 6th regular meeting minutes, consider approval of April bills pending review, and consider approval of intergovernmental agreement for funding and services to implement the John Day River Total Maximum Daily Load Implementation Plan. Is there further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let me just catch up in my packet. We'll go into item, oops, I'm too far here. So we are into unfinished business. This is item 5.1, discuss in-house economic development structure. And again, for folks who did not attend the last meeting, or for those that are watching from home, I'll just give a quick synopsis, which was basically the county court had received some correspondence from the city of Condon asking for the opportunity to work directly with Gilliam County on economic development projects. And so that was read as part of correspondence several meetings ago. And the county court had asked me to put together an initial staffing structure proposal so they could see what that might look like if we were to engage with those sorts of projects in-house. As we noted during the last meeting, really the roles and responsibilities of our local partners related to economic development is a little fuzzy. I think something that, Peter Mitchell was on last time and acknowledged that, this relationship has always been really pretty informal. And so anyway, basically, I laid out a structure that would, in essence, have the county judge really continuing to serve as sort of the point person for Gilliam County on economic development projects. Something that really, I think, as some of the letters pointed out, is not all that much different from what I would normally do. Typically, if somebody has an economic development project that they anticipate is going to require county funds, they engage county staff pretty early in that process, and that is generally me that they ask to be part of those conversations if they're anticipating that they're going to want county support down the road, which obviously makes sense. And so the idea, the structure that I laid out during our last meeting was that, in essence, I would continue to serve as that sort of point person within the county. The chief of staff and administrative assistant in their current roles, which is already support functions for what we do at county court, would continue to serve those supportive roles to help get things on the court's agenda, et cetera, help coordinate, be thought partners, those kinds of things. And then we would look at restructuring the community development coordinator role to help fit into that structure a little bit more. And so obviously, as we've discussed during the last meeting, this is really just a high level. It's not meant to get into the weeds in terms of what each individual would be doing and how that would look. But the idea is basically to lay out, here's how it could look, and to get your feedback, commissioners, on if I'm off base or if I'm headed in the direction that you think would work. So, and I don't know, Catherine, if you guys at this point want to step in and maybe talk a little bit about what precipitated the letter and sort of the city's thoughts on economic development. This might be a good time to jump in.
I'm going to hand this over to Councilor Fatlin, and then if he needs some assistance, I'll jump in.
Okay. Tom, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. I guess what we wanted, the reason that we submitted that is we've kind of been in partnership with the county, and even though we've done most of our economic development ourselves, but we've been in partnership with the county and over the last 10 years, and have done a lot of projects, and it just seems like it's more seamless us partnering with the county than with the port. They have their own agenda down there. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but and sometimes it doesn't mesh with ours, and it just seems like it's more seamless if we partner with the county on this to help us with more technical issues and financial issues also. It just seems like it's a better fit for us than going through the port getting money from the county and doing it that way.
Great. Other feedback?
Just to add to Tom's, that's bread and butter of it. And I just wanted to say that we have done some economic development projects, our Main Street renovation, our infrastructure replacement, our fiber project, our housing, all the projects except for the Main Street renovation done with the assistance of county funds. But overall, the city funds that were not passed through from the county, those could be our waste management funds, even though they're considered possibly passed through, or our windmill funds. We have spent over $1 million of city funds to do our economic development. And what we're coming to now is we've got 3 projects going right now that are a bit overwhelming for staff, which is me. And we're also going into some projects that we can really use the technical assistance, which includes a housing project in dealing with a land deed exchange. Well, not even exchange. We're taking over the grade school possibly and field to do some housing. And we've also, we're up to write a grant for the Condon School District. They're building a new school and they're gonna need streets and sidewalks. They can't write an ODOT Safe Routes to School. We'll have to do that. but it would tie in with their new building. And so it would match, and if they're already putting a lot into a new building, the match should not be a problem. So on Tom's, again, it was, we've been doing our own economic development for the last 10 years, and it's come to the point that we would just like to formalize some of this and get some more technical assistance and not go through another level of bureaucracy of having one more entity in between where we're getting the money and working with. So thanks.
Commissioners, do you guys have any questions for the city about?
I don't think I do. I understand where they're coming from, and I think there's some misconception and a bit in where this is actually coming from. This is an enhancement for our county, and we do want to work with all of our partners, the City of Arlington, the City of Condon, the Port of Arlington, the PCDC. These are all entities that must work together. But we want to strengthen what we're doing, and we want to strengthen that within the county where the funds are actually being distributed.
Leslie, any thoughts?
Yes, I have to find my unmute. I was just, I'm looking, I have notes all over here, and they're obviously not very organized, but I have talked with the City of Condon quite a bit about this issue. So I think I'm up to speed on where they're coming from.
Okay. So in terms of next steps, is this something that you guys feel you're ready to, I mean, really what we're looking at is if this was something that we wanted to move forward with, obviously I'm still engaged in these conversations, so that's really not going to look much different for me. You know, that it is part of my job to help with these big picture things, and so that's not really a change. What we may be looking at is, again, just looking back at the job descriptions of some of the support staff to make sure that those are really specific and designed to meet the needs that we're identifying here. Really looking at particularly the community development job description, just to make sure that that's in alignment with what we actually need to do to follow through on projects and complete them. So is that something, I mean, there's not really anything to vote on necessarily, I guess is what I'm saying, but if you guys feel comfortable with this as an approach, then next steps would be for me to take a closer look at those job descriptions and come back to the county court to fill in, kind of put the meat on the bones in terms of staffing responsibilities and how staff would support these efforts. Are you guys interested in having me do that, or are you still wanting to think about this?
Oh, do we have other people that would like to make a comment at this time? I see some other faces pop up. No?
Anybody else?
I would like to see us move forward and enhance what the job description of our community develop coordinator was, and have her work in that economic development role as well. I think that would be a benefit to the City of Condon, the port. It's just a benefit to everyone to have someone else within the county structure with those types of duties.
Okay. Leslie, does that sound? Go ahead.
Without getting into the weeds, do you have any estimate of how much time we're talking about from the chief of staff and our county court administrative assistant, of what their time commitment would be if we move forward? I
mean, I think the expectation is that this will fold in. They're both salaried employees. they both signed up to do the work of the court, basically. And so as our workload increases, their workload increases, and that sort of comes with it. I think that I see Lisa up in the corner nodding, that's sort of their expectation, is that when we have big projects that we're working on that require more staff support, that they're on board for that. And that's really why we designed the county court staff the way it is so that we could approach these big picture needs of the community, the things that really are going to be lasting in terms of impact for the people we represent, and that we have adequate staff to do those projects well. So I'm not concerned for them in terms of them being able to handle it. They both have taken on, especially during COVID-19, an incredible amount of work that was just sort of came in that they have handled wonderfully. So I'm not concerned about that piece. Other questions? I see Peter raised his hand. Peter?
Yeah, one of the things I think as you go forward with trying to figure out what to do on economic development, it might help the county to have some kind of a plan or idea where you want to go, so that if you're going to staff up, that you have the right people in place to help carry out that plan or that thinking, and not just economic development per se, but what kind of economic development are you really to take on? I know Condon has been very interested in working with the city or working with the county directly, which is great. And there's a lot of collaboration that's often gone on between county and court, because obviously that's where the big money is for these big projects. So they're going to come there. I haven't heard too much about what your thinking is with Arlington and what you're planning to do and how to do that, because the largest industrial property is in Arlington with Arlington Mesa, that's mostly owned by the city. The port just has a little 40 acres of it, but there's almost 460 acres in that industrial park, plus the airport industrial property at Arlington. And the Arlington's located on the interstate, which, having proximity to the interstate, has a lot of advantages for some people looking to locate out here. And your bigger developments could likely go into such a facility with all the infrastructure that's been put in there. So I would be really interested to hear you articulate what your thoughts are on that and what kind of a plan that you would do going forward. The county had done a plan. This was before I came on, so it must have been like 2010. And we kind of briefly looked at it for a few years back, into that. I don't know, maybe it's about 2015 or 16, and updated it a little bit. But that's the last time any kind of a plan had been put in place. And clearly, if you have funding, you can always hire experts to help you out with certain projects. And you do have a good staff there now that can help facilitate that. But Judge, I think if you're going to be point person on economic development, clearly, the funding comes through the court and approval of the funding. You can't help but get involved. But a lot of projects do require a lot of staff time to see them completely through. Just an example, the Arlington TV co-op project. We worked on that for probably 4.5 years before they got funded. We worked on, and I was involved with you on that one, the brewery project there in Condon. We looked at trying to get a brewery in. I think we spent almost a year doing that before it didn't quite work out. But they do take a lot of staff time. And that was after the port had invested in a feasibility study for a brewery that we did that. So I think it would take a lot more of your time, Judge, to really spearhead these projects and bring them to fruition than you really have. So, but if you have a plan and know what kind of development you want to do, I think you would serve yourself better before you start putting all the players in it.
Thanks, Peter. Other folks who would like to weigh in? Just checking to make sure I'm not missing any hand raised on the side.
Liz, this is Caitlin. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
How do you see the chamber's role in really complementing, or how do you see these two positions complementing each other and how we can work together Gilliam County wide?
I mean, I think that's a great question. I think part of what I'm hoping the county court will be doing, to Peter's point about plans, at this point, had COVID-19 not happened, we would have probably been knee-deep in finishing a strategic plan for Gilliam County. And unfortunately, the coronavirus impacted that timeline. And so what my hope is that as we start to get back to business, that we can really look at the strategic plan. And part of that discussion, I think, with the commissioners and with the public and our employees, is going to be looking at strategic partnerships and how to leverage assets within the community to strengthen what we're doing. I mean, obviously, when you live in a small community, we need to make sure that we're making the most of what can sometimes be limited resources. And so I guess I don't have a good answer for you in terms of how this would all shape out, but my hope is that as we sort of start to move forward and put some strategic planning in place at the county level, really start to partner with the cities and the port, that this will sort of come together and those roles will be a little bit more clear. I mean, I think clearly you have a significant role and presence in our business community. I think I see some of our business owners on here now, and the feedback in terms of how the resources that you provided the community, the business community during this public health crisis has been really fantastic. And so, you know, I think the commissioners probably have their own ideas about how that partnership might look going forward. But, you know, I think, I don't know, I feel like I may be kind of rambling because I don't have a good answer for you at this point. But I think over time, my hope is that this will sort of develop. We're really just now in the very beginning stages of thinking about how this could look for the county. And so definitely figuring out how partners play into that and how we can best support the overall goal, which is making Gilliam County a better place to live. The more, as we go forward, my hope is that those partnerships and those roles will become more clear. Commissioner,
thank you so much.
Or did my rambling cover it?
You broke up there for a minute. I didn't hear the last part.
I said, did you have thoughts on that, or did my rambling cover it?
I thought your rambling was good.
Okay, so I think in terms of next steps is I will take a closer look at job descriptions. Again, just for folks at home, these are existing staff members, so we're not talking about onboarding new employees and things like that. It's really just making sure that the job descriptions that we have for folks are flexible and really help define what expectations and roles are within the courthouse. So that's really what we're going for. We're not talking about a new hire, any of those kinds of things. And we're just making sure that that structure really fits fits the goal so that we're able to be a good partner. So I will plan on bringing that back at a future court meeting then for you guys to take a look at. Sound good? Okay, let's move on to new business. And we'll go right into 6.1, which is Waste Management Quarterly Report. I saw Leah on here. Leah, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Fantastic. Are you flying solo or?
I am.
Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to you then.
Okay, so good afternoon, Judge Farrar and commissioners. This is a quarterly report for Q1 for Columbia Ridge and Chemical Waste Management. So Q1 volumes were actually pretty good at Columbia Ridge. We were up 20%, and year to date we were up 8%. We did see those volumes fall off in April. That's when we started seeing that decline from the COVID-19 issues and the close downs and things like that were happening. The host fees paid to Gilliam County in Q1 were about $1 million, and year to date about $1.4 million so far. Chemical waste management volumes were down 50% for Q1 and about 43% versus last year at this time. And remember that business really fluxes. That business is based on cleanups and projects, that type of thing. So that's sort of the norm with that particular business. Safety, I hate to say this out loud because we've been doing really good and I don't want to jinx it, but Columbia Ridge has had 110 days with no lost time accidents, and chemical waste management has had no lost time accidents since 2018. So that's
Wonderful.
That's really good in terms of our safety. In terms of the COVID-19 stuff, we of course are trying to keep our people safe and focusing on a healthy, safe work environment. We're following some new procedures for social distancing. We're not doing our large group meetings, regular disinfecting of the common areas. We're staggering breaks and lunches so that we don't have so many people in those rooms. And that's been working pretty good. We're participating with those regular calls on Monday mornings with Gilliam County officials, which has been really helpful, I think, and informational for everybody. We have pretty much stayed on our service level with our customers, with our transfer stations and our recycling and our landfills, hauling sites. We've been able to service our customers without interruption. We've also guaranteed our employees 40-hour weeks. We have tried to cut back on the overtime, but we don't want anybody not being able to make their rent payments and such, so we are being cognizant of that. In terms of compliance, we are still working with the Department of Energy on moving through the issue with receiving the waste from North Dakota. We had those discussions with the town hall about the next steps that we were going to take. And on April 30th, we provided the Department of Energy with a technical report that was prepared by an independent radiation and risk analysis expert. And this report really validates what we said early on, that we do not have any current risk to employees of the public or the environment. And we are still working through that process with them. We also received a preliminary pre-enforcement notice from Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Two issues relate to the material accepted from North Dakota, and then one is compliance issue with our waste analysis plan. And those are being addressed. Also, we have rectified the issues with the waste analysis plan, and we're responding to the agency on those issues. Hiring, we are kind of in a hiring freeze at this time. Once the COVID-19 stuff lightens up more, we'll be able to go back in and fill those positions. So we hope that that doesn't stay on too long, because we do need those people back. We've got several construction projects going on. We are paving in the rail yard between track 4 and 5 right now. We are looking at installing an enclosure over the gondola bridge. That's kind of in preliminary design right now to help eliminate any emissions that we might have. And in that area, we're also improving the truck ramps so that we're better able to clean off the wheels of the trucks and keep that area cleaner. And then we are still in discussions with the county and the county roadmaster concerning the Cedar Springs bypass road, and we're still moving forward on that. I'm hopeful with that we'll come to resolution with that. Chem waste projects, we're still moving forward with the Part B permit renewal, and the Class 3 permit modification that we talked about earlier is still in process. It's kind of been slowed up. I think everything has been slowed up by COVID-19. It's hard to have these meetings and sit down with the agencies and work through these things with this going on. Employee and community engagement. We're working to educate our team on the things that are coming up with the COVID issues on a daily basis, and encouraging the social distancing. They're wearing masks. We've staggered our shifts for lunch and break. And then during that thing, I was really proud of our group over there because they did the donation of the school supplies for the K through 12 kids. And those were delivered out with the buses to the rural families too, for Condon and Arlington, with all those school supplies in the backpack. So I think that was a really good thing that we did with that. It was very cool. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any. Commissioners, do you have any?
I don't have any questions. I wanted to say though too, I participate in the weekly COVID calls, and it is nice to hear from representatives of Waste Management on those calls. So appreciate that.
Well, and we like it because it's informative to us too, and it keeps us abreast of whatever's going on in the community. And I just think it's important as partners to be there.
Yeah, and Leah, I just wanted to echo too that I appreciated that you guys have been very good at communicating any potential issues out at the site, and specifically around the pandemic. So I really appreciate that too. That's been very helpful.
You're welcome. We appreciate your involvement too. Anything else, guys?
Any other questions for Leah? I don't think so, Leah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, we'll move on to 6.2. This is Columbia Gorge Community College proposal for public investment in skills center and student housing. Hey, Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Judge Farrar. I appreciate that. My name is Dan Spots. I'm Capital Projects Director and Community Relations Director for Columbia Gorge Community College. And sometime back, I think it was late January, perhaps, this year is flying by, I had the opportunity to speak with Judge Farrar about this project, and she expressed interest in my coming back and talking to the commissioners about what we're doing at the college and perhaps exploring a long-term partnership between Gilliam County and Columbia Gorge Community College. And I do stress long-term. We're in this for the duration. I need to give you a little bit of history, and I know you have a long agenda, so I'll try to move through this. Back in 2015, the Oregon legislature allocated $7.3 million to the college to build a skills center, workforce training skills center on the Dallas campus. We recognized a challenge that our students had in attending college, commuting long distances, and that was the cost of housing, affordable housing in the Dalles in particular, also in Hood River, where we also have a campus. So we sought and received permission from the Oregon Department of Justice to invest part of the state allocation at a local match in student housing. We received that permission, and suffice it to say that we are proceeding with both projects right now. The state allocation was contingent upon a dollar-for-dollar match, a cash match, $7.3 million. We achieved that in February of 2019, thanks to contributions from Wasco County and the city of the Dalles, $3.5 million coming from those two entities combined, with the college putting up the rest of the match through a full faith and credit bond obligation. We brought a project manager, architect, and general contractor on board over the past year, and in July we'll be breaking ground on a skill center and a student housing complex on the Dallas campus. Not surprisingly, with a total budget of $14.6 million, that's pretty tight to build two buildings. And so we have gone through a value engineering process to identify costs that we can possibly contain and minimize the investment. Nevertheless, we're running into a shortfall. Our construction budget is about 11.2, and we have gone through a couple of rounds of estimates looking at somewhere between a $1.1 and a $2.1 million deficit when we spoke back in late January. We've continued to trim costs, and right now the information that I presented back in, what was it, a few weeks ago anyway, is already out of date. We've trimmed the deficit now to about 1.6, and that's about where we're going to hold. We really don't want to do any additional cutting on either one of these projects. The most significant cut that we've done has been to reduce the number of beds in housing from 72, as originally envisioned, down to 51. And so I am here to discuss with Gilliam County Court to present for your consideration a partnership with the college wherein Gilliam County would provide resources for us to help meet that deficit in partnership with Sherman County. I did meet with the Sherman County Court about a month ago, advised them that we would be meeting also with Gilliam County Court, and they asked me, well, let's see what Gilliam County has to say about this also. So we definitely look at this as a potential partnership with both of these counties. What are we going to doing in the skill center? Construction trades, we'll be doing metal fabrication, and we'll be doing some components of aviation maintenance. We are starting a Part 147 airframe and power plant training program. We have solid support from the Federal Aviation Administration on this, looking to a projected shortfall, according to Boeing, of about 193,000 vacancies across North America between now and 2038. That construction trades is a long-standing skill gap in our region. Welding, metal fabrication, the larger realm of metal fabrication, we'll be doing those things at the Skill Center. So those are three initial programs that we're looking at. The idea of the Skill Center is to maintain flexibility down the years. 10 years ago, who knew anything about unmanned aerial surveillance systems, for instance, UAS and UAV? Look how that's taken off from a couple of guys in a garage with in situ to what that is now. So we need to maintain flexibility on the Skill Center. It could be something entirely different in terms of programming 10, 20 years from now. Any of these programs are going to need an economy of scale, which is where the housing comes in. We can draw from the immediate area, the Dalles, Hood River, but for any of these programs to be successful, we need to have the capacity to bring students in from Gilliam County, Wheeler, Sherman, Klickitat County, and farther afield. Aviation maintenance, for instance, could come from all over the Northwest. So part of that housing component is to support enrollment. It is not to make a lot of money for the college. You hear about university housing, dorm housing, it becomes a profit center. Our goal with that housing is to break even, make enough to cover operational costs, but primarily to support full-time enrollment at the college. So that's where we're coming from on that. The proposal I presented called for, I think it was $2.5 million split between Gilliam and Sherman County, and that would be over a period of years. Certainly not only in the typical budget cycle, but also in the very difficult times in which we all find ourselves right now. That would be very presumptuous to suggest anything in the short term. But long term, something to consider. Again, I mentioned the deficit is down to 1.6. Our proposal now, the request now, would be $2 million, one from each. In return, we would like to propose a tuition waiver, a long-term tuition waiver for up to 17 students from each county, stretching over 15 years. Our current tuition annually is about $4,700. We increase it a little bit each year. Typically, sometimes we don't. But a waiver in this case would be up to $5,000 per year for 15 years. We would waive that tuition for students coming from Gilliam County in order for you to see some return on your investment, tangible return, and a way of measuring the effectiveness of this. The material that I provided earlier provides some numbers on the number of students coming from Gilliam and Sherman County now. Some are college now, some are other students from high school. And I emphasize also, we're looking at incumbent workforce on this. Older workers, we're looking to retrain, gain new skills in family wage jobs. Again, I emphasize this is a discussion point. Certainly not looking for a decision by any means, but opening the door on a discussion that we might engage in to see whether this would be of interest to Gilliam County. With that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Commissioners, do you have questions for Dan? You're both muted.
Hey, are you going, Sherry?
Go ahead.
Hmm?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I listed some things and I don't know if we're ready for all of these questions yet, but so 17 people per year per county at $5,000. What would happen if, say, in 1 year there was only seven from our county? Would that amount go up to 10,000? Or well, I guess tuition doesn't cost that much, but would it be able to be applied for anything else like housing or books or anything like that? Or is it just 5,000? And it doesn't matter if we only had one person in 1 year that wanted to participate.
Right now, the focus, and that's a good question, it's one we've tackled internally as well. On the housing side, we do need to cover the operational cost of the housing. Current proposal would be for tuition only, and we have looked at requiring students to pay fees because the fee structure can vary significantly from one class to another, whether it's nursing or something else. So right now, no, it would only be a tuition waiver. Now, whether we could prorate this in some way, maybe extend the number of years or something, that might be something to talk about. But I think the key here is going to be to try to encourage increased enrollment. Frankly, we would love to see a lot more students coming from Gilliam County to Columbia Gorge Community College. Same thing with Sherman County. When we talked about building housing, it was largely with the outlying area in mind. I'm always reminded of a student from Fossil who commuted daily to our nursing program, daily, until she was able to find housing. And I think it took her the better part of a year before that happened. How many other students are out there of all ages that we might be able to attract with this resource? So I don't have a solid answer for you right now, but I think that the promise of this project is that we could expand and only have 2 or 3. We propose 17, maybe we have more than that.
Okay, I had another question I had was, I saw something in your proposal that I think maybe said you had to be taking 15 credits a term. And so what I was wondering about is for older students that maybe want to work full time and only want to take a few classes at a time. But this sounds like this is only for a full-time student.
It's been based upon full-time equivalency, yes, of 15. That, again, is something that we would want to discuss. I don't want to present anything in that proposal as an absolute. What I wanted to do here is open the door to this discussion and see if we could talk about things just exactly like that. Certainly students with families, with the emphasis we have on career tech and the Skills Center, students might only be able to or need to come onto campus a couple of days a week, and they've got family in Condon or Arlington. How do you balance that out? It's something we want to discuss.
Sherry, jump in here because I need to look and see if I have another one here.
What you scribbled down in the margins?
Exactly.
I did have, you say, and we would all like to see more of our residents attend a college that are interested in that. Do you have a program in place to recruit and encourage people of all ages to come from Gilliam County, Sherman County to attend your college? And I know you send out the your booklet every semester, but what else is happening?
A couple of other things. We have student advisors from the college who go out to the high schools and talk about the programs that we have. We also have through Title 1B and Title 2 workforce training and youth training through Workforce Investment Act. We contract with East Cascades Works to provide workforce training in the 5-county region. And that is another way to encourage students to continue their education, to go into our pre-college programs. If they need basic skills, or if they have those skills already, to go directly into a credit-based program. So not saying that that covers that base though. I think that regardless of the outcome of this discussion, we need to be doing more. One thing I would point out is a distance learning grant that we received from USDA Rural Development. And I know we have met with several of you, I think over the past 6 months, received letters of support from City of Condon, the Arlington School District and Condon School District, and the county itself have all been and will be partners in this. We've received letters from each of you. So that's a distance learning focus. We are actually we're the only community college in Oregon to receive one of those grants from USDA Rural Development, reaching high schools all through 7-county region, even over into Klickitat County. So that would be another way to encourage continuing enrollment. That's focused on high school as well. Upon graduation, where do you go from there? So that distance learning grant is going to be a natural avenue to expand what we're doing already.
Thank you.
Leslie, did you find any more questions?
Yes, but what we were just talking about, just to make sure I'm clear on it. So would we be talking about people being able to use this waiver for distance learning?
I hadn't thought about that one. It's a good question. Why not? The idea is a waiver of credit coursework. It would make sense, certainly. We've been thinking in terms of students who are physically present, probably living in the campus housing and attending classes on campus. That's an excellent point. I don't see any reason why that waiver would not apply to students living in Gilliam County taking credit classes. It doesn't matter whether they're staying in the county or coming onto the Dallas campus. It's a good question. Thank you.
Okay, and then another question I had, which I think maybe might have been partially answered before, but it's something I wrote down last night, and it was in the proposal it talks about 15 years. We would do this for 15 years, and it would exceed our county's contribution, but that would only be if we had 17 a year. So, guessing maybe it might be less than that for a part
Correct.
of those years or a good number of years. Would we look at maybe extending that?
We've based the proposal right now on that 15 years. It's capping at $5,000 a year tuition. I think that would be another discussion point. Again, I don't think anything in here is absolute. We want to be able to see if we can build this partnership in some way, and the questions you're asking are the ways we get to that point. We'll start at some point in a proposal, and whether we need to do some sort of proration. The one area where I think we would have difficulty will be in not charging for housing, because we need to meet operational costs there. The fees would be a challenge. And we talked originally about simply extending free tuition, period, without capping it. I talked to my CFO on that one, and he asked me what I've been smoking lately. So that was a no. So we did have to cap it at 5,000, but the duration could be something that we could.
Any other questions for Dan?
I don't have any right now. I think some feedback from Sherman County and what it looks like for them would help us as well.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was too, talking to Sherman County a little bit, seeing what their thoughts are, and just letting it kind of sink in a little bit too, because I think at least my takeaway, unless I'm off base, Dan, is that this is sort of an initial idea for what we could be talking about, but sometimes it helps to think through and see if, you know, there may be another creative partnership that we haven't thought of that might work for both entities as well.
It could well be. My promise to Judge Dubulskis and commissioners at Sherman County was that we would have this conversation and I would circle back to them. Again, this is a long-range project. We'll break ground in July. We'll open the following summer. We have a plan in place to cover that deficit. But down the road, we'd like to be able to reduce it, since it does increase operational costs for the college's own debt load. So let's keep the conversation going, if we may. I'll circle back to Sherman County, and we'll see where we go from here.
Thank you.
That sounds okay?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your time.
Thanks for spending some time with us, Dan.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You have a great day.
And you too. Good luck to everyone. Stay safe.
Thanks. Okay, commissioners, I think let's go back to 6.3 under new business. This is consider approval of Tennyson Engineering Consultant Services proposal for land use planning issues north of Cottonwood Road. I see we have Michelle on, and I thought I saw Dan Meter come on too. Let me just double check. Dan, are you there?
I want to go with Michelle. She's-
Okay. Yeah, Michelle, you've got some nice palm trees there. Nice little
you hear me?
breeze happening behind you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Judge Farrar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, good. Kind of
So
echoing in
Michelle,
here.
Michelle,
sorry for
I was going to
Yes.
say the commissioners have been given a briefing, but I think it might help if you could maybe walk us through what precipitated this and just talk about the landowners. I understand there are multiple considerations around Cottonwood that you've run into, and that this is sort of looking at a possible solution to all of them at once. Am I right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, this area is north of Cottonwood Lane, in the just outside of the city of Condon. There's a section that's in the urban growth boundary for the city of Condon, and then just west of that is solely in the jurisdiction of Gilliam County for planning and land use. There's lots of activity in this particular area, and we've had just recently, we had a landowner come and request or inquire about being able to do something through the county, and this was in the urban growth boundary, and come to find out the use that they would like to do is not permitted currently. And then we had that individual landowner, since it was in the urban growth boundary, decided to take the conversation with the city of Condon. And then some conversations have happened, and then just recently, Dan Meter and myself had a conversation, and we were just kind of talking about things and where that situation was and about the whole area. And through that conversation, it kind of got exciting that maybe one of the solutions is that can help all landowners is for the county to take more of a strategic approach and consider rezoning this area, these two areas. Granted, the urban growth boundary has to be a cooperation with the city of Condon, and maybe we can better utilize this land and make it more feasible for development and for residential use that isn't really allowable right now. And so out of that excitement and those discussions, I have worked with Dan over the last several years, and then Dan and I agreed, let's get a proposal written and submitted so we can take it to the county court. Tennyson would definitely take on the role of being the facilitator, the moderator to keep all this going. There's definitely several agencies working here and committees. You've got Planning Commission at the county, you've got Planning Commission at the city, you also got county court, and then you have the city council as well. So there's different agencies, and then we also have the Department of Land Conservation and Development that has a role as well, because this would be a legislative hearing process for several of these bodies, and we would be proposing changes to the development ordinance and to the comprehensive plan. And there's some specifics that were lined out in the packet of how some things are specific to just the county role, and Then there's the dual role of both city and the county. I think this is exciting that we're definitely trying to approach this very proactively and encouraging. I want to say we will involve the public. There's no way that we would not. We will send out notices. We will have conversations with the landowners, because in order to be successful, we need them to tell us what they need and what works for them. I'm not going to go into too much because I know Tennyson does have something to share, but if there are some quick questions from the judge or the commissioners, I can entertain that, or we can wait till Tennyson provides a little more information for the county court to consider.
And am I correct as well? I see Catherine's on there that Dan also provides planning consultation for the city. So that there's kind of a natural synergy there where he's worked with you, Michelle, but he's also consistently worked with Catherine. So it's a known entity for both.
I was waiting to see if Catherine's, that is my
Yes.
understanding. I was going to let Catherine talk, but I'm not seeing if she's popping in right now.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, we've worked also with Dan until he retired, and he's trying to re-retire again. So I do have to declare a conflict of interest that your new staff planner is also my nephew. So, but we're looking forward to, this has been a problem area for a long time, and we went through trying to correct it, and I think we made it worse in probably 2008. So this is a good move to get it finally rezoned properly, so the uses that are actually north of Cottonwood, whether in the UGB or now in the EFU, all fit, and it will make it easier, I think, on Michelle and the city to do this.
Thank you, Catherine.
Great. So Dan and Kirk, do you guys
We're here.
take over?
We're here. Let me introduce Kirk. He's our new hire, and he is working with me, and I hopefully will be working with him for the rest of the year, and hopefully by the end of the year, I'll hand him the keys and I'll retire. But I'll continue to back him up for as long as he needs me. And
I'm not sure if they're allowing that, Dan. I see people shaking their heads.
We'll take Kirk too.
Go ahead. I didn't hear. Very briefly, as you might expect, I have considerable experience in working with cities and counties. I've been with Tennyson as of this year, 50 years. And it's time for me to hit the road pretty quick. But this is a fairly simple project. The one half of it is in the city of London's urban growth boundary. And an urban growth boundary is an unique Oregon process brought about by the Senate Bill 100, 1973. And I'm not going to bring you up to date on that year by year. But what it means is the city and the county have to agree to an urbanization area outside the existing city limits and adopt a comprehensive plan designation for it. And then the county would zone the underlying land. The area north of Cottonwood and between Browns Road and the highway is currently planned and zoned industrial. The history on it is before the 64 flood, it was a stockyards. And I suspect that's why it got the industrial designation. After the 64 flood, of course, the railroad was wiped out and individual ownerships were broken out. And there are at least 3 home sites with livestock and horses on the property. There's also a substation and a small warehouse. The industrial zoning recognizes the substation and the small warehouse, but it doesn't recognize the residential semi-farm uses that currently occur there. The Johnson family, which is the people that Catherine was speaking about, asked me to look into it about 6-8 months ago. And the only thing I could do is suggest they try to bring it to do it just an individual zone change. When I brought the issue to Michelle, we got to talking about it's a bigger problem than that. And that's where the idea came from, redoing that whole section. There would be some industrial property that would be taken out of the inventory. However, the city's recent economic development plan done this past year found that there was an overabundance of industrial land in the city, and there's approximately 190 acres to the north in the county that's currently designated industrial as well. So we don't feel that that's going to be an issue. Because both jurisdictions have to adopt something out of this, the county would adopt plan designation and the zoning, the city would adopt the planning designation. 4 public hearings are required. The second piece is the Dunn edition. This was platted in 1905 and then replatted in 1906. And at one point it was in the urban growth boundary. And there was a situation developed where the city took another look at its urban growth boundary, and the people living in the Dunn's edition came to the city and said, we don't want to be there. And it's because they have horses. And city has a fairly firm rule against livestock inside the city limits. For that reason, I believe 2008, it was taken out of the urban growth boundary and is currently zoned EFU. There are some vacant lots that I think could be sold, but under the current zoning would not be eligible for a building permit. And the existing dwellings could not expand. If they burned, one was destroyed by fire, it could not be rebuilt. Our thought is to go to the state, let them know what we're going to do, and rezone that a comparable residential zone. The best one I've found so far is called recreational commercial in the county, and the recreational residential, excuse me. I've got the recreational commercial zone out in Maupin. It's driving me nuts right now. The zone is recreational residential, and the only residential use or recreational use allowed is a golf course. I think that zone would work fine. We could maybe rename it to residential 2 or rural residential 2 or something like that. We will work on that as part of the project. It requires a notice to DLCD because it's EFU or exclusive farm use. It's a resource land under goal 3, and an exception statement is required. And that's a fairly lengthy piece that has to be written. And the hearings would just be before the County Planning Commission and the county court. We think we can do these fairly concurrently and get it done within 90 to 120 days. And I expect a little pushback from the property owners. We're going to try to meet with them individually or in a town hall meeting to try to explain what's going on. And then I expect a little pushback from the state, but I don't think we'll incur their wrath. I think we'll be able to go through with it. That's about it. I'll be happy to answer questions. Oh, you have the before and after maps. Kirk, can you show them? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the upper map is what it is now, and you can see the industrial land in the urban growth boundary on the right side, and then the Dunn addition on the left side. And interestingly, the urban growth boundary, when it was in place, extended above the north of the Dunn addition out to a level equal to the urban growth boundary. So we would be dealing with a lot less land than we would have been before. I think it's fairly straightforward. I don't know that there's any surprises out there.
Commissioners, any questions for Dan?
I thought it sounded like a good plan, especially to address some of these issues. I think we're lucky to have someone with Dan's experience to help us muddle through this. And I also think it would be a good training opportunity for Kirk.
Yeah, it looks like something we definitely need to undertake.
And so in terms of estimates in your court packet, the cost is estimated at 10 to 12,000, which could be partially offset by a reimbursement from the Johnsons, I believe, right? Is that who we're talking about for the landowners?
That's correct. We felt that they should have some skin in the game because they're in a kind of a pickle and really want to get this done, and to do the full piece will benefit them as well. So that's why we did that. Yeah, the exposure to the county would be limited to about 9,000.
It sounds like it would clean up a bunch of stuff for 9,000.
Right?
Commissioners, any further questions?
I don't either. I move to approve the proposal for consultant services with Tennyson Engineering for land use planning issues north of Cottonwood Road as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the proposal for consultant services with Tennyson Engineering for land use planning issues north of Cottonwood Road as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. All right.
Thank you
Sounds
very
like
much.
we're doing this.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very
thanks
much.
for bringing this forward. And thanks, Dan. And good to see you, Kirk. And we still see your screen, Kirk, just so you know.
Yeah, I see that, but not sure how to undo it.
Let me see.
We'll leave you now.
I might ask Teresa or Lisa. They might be able to release that. Ladies, do you know how to do that? Reclaim the screen?
There we are.
There we
There
go.
we go. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to 6.4. This is consider approval of resolution number R 2020-15, reallocating county funds to assist Gilliam County small business recovery efforts. So I'll sort of tee this off, and then Kaylin's on the line as well, and so she can supplement this. But basically, as you guys recall, in the very beginning days of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had authorized the creation of a stabilization grant program and funded it with $150,000 to be administered by the Chamber. The Chamber has done a fantastic job, I think, of getting those funds out quickly to businesses who needed them. And so they funded 17 businesses so far with a total of $94,560, which leaves about $55,500 and change left. And so as we're entering this next stage of reopening, I think businesses have a new set of challenges and things that they're trying to overcome in terms of needing to meet the governor's changing guidelines in terms of providing appropriate social distancing, sanitation for those businesses who've been closed. For instance, some of our bars and restaurants that have been closed and may have had all of their perishable goods lost over time and have not had any income coming in. Some of them may need some help replenishing that inventory in order to sort of get back up and running. And so the idea that the Chamber is coming to us with is really asking if they can use those remaining funds that were left of the original 150, that 55,000, to repurpose into a new grant program that would be administered by them to help meet some of those reopening and recovery needs as they're coming up. So, Kaylin, did I capture that?
Yeah, actually perfectly. And I'd just like to thank the court for their support. You know, I think we were able to also, in this process, really help a number of different counties and individual leadership, whether it was within the city or other Chamber of Commerce's, with a good criteria that they too could implement to help their small businesses. So we were able to really be a leader in this process. You know, we have senators right now putting through potential grant opportunities for businesses, but it's just being talked about. So again, I just want to encourage the court to consider this as an opportunity to really be a leader and show people what really supporting small businesses in counties can look like.
So if we decided that this was something that we wanted to move forward with, I think the existing memorandum of agreement with the chamber was broad enough that I don't think we need to tinker with that language. We left some pretty broad language in there to be able to handle random things as they came up, and so I think this would probably fit under that. And so I just went ahead and put together a resolution that basically is just the documentation for the auditors and others that we've allowed the chamber to reallocate these funds to this reopening effort. So any thoughts or questions for Kaylin, or thoughts on the idea?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to continue with supporting our businesses. And if this $55,000 isn't enough, I think we need to be sure and keep our finger on what's happening and what our businesses need. I personally, I don't want them to think that we only have $55,000 left, and if you have a problem, we're out, because we're not out. We're still in this. We're all in it together, and we need to continue to support that. So we need to have Kaylin and our businesses keep us abreast of how they're doing and what their needs are to keep our county prosperous.
Thank you, Sherry. We will absolutely do our best.
Leslie, thoughts on this?
Well, hold on, I'm looking. I've noticed in the proposal that it was for very specific things. This grant. It looked like it was for you know, inventory of perishable goods and cleaning materials and things like that. And so it is just specifically for what's listed on here.
I mean, I think my recommendation would be that we allow the chamber some flexibility. I think what's in your packet is an initial idea for the chamber on what they think those most immediate reopening needs would be. But part of the reason that I didn't say attach the draft guidelines or things like that is something for us to approve is that I think it might make some sense to allow the chamber some flexibility, because there will be additional phases of this reopening, right? And so depending on what the tourism traffic looks like over the summer, I mean, there may be some additional needs. And so what I would suggest is, rather than focus on the guidelines specifically, that maybe we sort of give our blessing to the chamber. I think they have a competent board. They've got a good stabilization group that's working really well together to help identify those needs as businesses progress, so that we're not micromanaging what the funds can be used for. And so if you guys are open to that, that's kind of the direction I was going, and why the resolution is pretty broad in terms of just allowing them to identify those needs and to structure the grant agreements as they go forward to help meet those needs as they shift.
Okay, good. Because when I read it, I thought, oh, it was very, you know, detailed as to what it was for. And so I like that idea.
Do we have any small business people that would like to? Yes,
I
Mr.
see
Sherry.
Pat on there. Pat, you're still muted.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, just what I've got going on so far for me. I've had to do some petitioning, which was $700, you know, where Kayla and I talked earlier about signage. I've got some chalkboards, but they're just miserable to try to keep them up to date, and it's critical to try to get everybody in you possibly can. And so maybe some reader boards and stuff. One thing I was thinking about that's really expensive, you don't even think about, is we have to do one-use menus, printing all the time. It's just crazy. And just the masks alone are $1 a piece. I need 50 a week. That's $200 that I don't normally have to spend. So there's stuff, you know, it's just coming up as we go. We just opened the deli last night we're still serving the deli food out of the Thousand. Opened the deli last night to do lottery, and if they want to have a cold beer, they can do lottery, and then the menus are there and we can order from across the street and bring it to them. So just walking our way into this slowly. I don't have anybody in there working just yet, but hopefully by the end of the week we'll get an employer or two started on that. I don't know. It's a mystery to me. We're just
One
doing the
step at
best
a
we
time.
can day by day. Had some contractors in, which really helped for a little while, but they're gradually leaving town, so it's getting skinny again. Yesterday wasn't a very good day. So, yeah.
Hey, Pat, did you get oh, I'm sorry, somebody else talking?
What's
No,
that?
go ahead, Les.
Pat, did you get I was in on the business adaptation training, and I sat through the restaurant portion. Did you get it squared away with the 6 feet and your aisleway and everything?
I think that I got 2 different answers on that training. And I know that Steve that was on there, he said that, you know, for just passing through, being within 6 feet would be okay. And then Nicole, which I'll talk to Nicole later about it. It's almost impossible for us. You can't even get to the lottery machines if you can't walk within 6 feet of 2 tables. You know, there's no way we couldn't, well, we probably could get 1 table in the deli, period. So we've spread everything out at 6 feet, back to chair to back to chair, and hopefully that it won't be a problem just walking through to get somewhere. You know, it's the whole thing is kind of crazy when you look at some of the requirements, because you can sit beside somebody and eat a meal with them, but you can't go in and stand by them in a lottery room and watch them play the machine. I don't know. We're doing the best we can with what they're throwing at us, and if they make some suggestions, we'll try to react to it. In little places like we've got, you don't have a lot of options. So, yeah.
Yeah, that seems kind of odd because in other businesses, you know, if you're a couple or whatever and you're together and you go in, then you can be together. And like you say, you can sit and eat a meal side by side.
Right.
Well,
it's just, you know, you go to Walmart and it's just nobody watches. It's not an issue. So we're going to manage the spread through a small business that's got people watching everything everybody does, and we're going to turn them loose in Walmart.
Yeah, I agree. And Safeway and
all of them.
And yeah, everywhere.
All of them.
Yep. It's wrong.
Anyhow, you guys can talk to the legislators about that because it's a little crazy.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So anybody else who's on the line that wants to share? I don't know if we have any other small business owners that are on, or commissioners, any other questions for Kaylin or myself, or, okay. How do we feel about this?
I'm ready. I move we adopt
Okay.
resolution number 2020-15 as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2020-15 as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we will move into 6.5, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2020-16, declaring a state of drought emergency in Gilliam County. And I see Herb is on there. I like that when we put a drought declaration on, we get an inch of rain. I think we should just continue to do this, and maybe we won't actually need one. So for folks who are watching at home who may not be familiar with drought declaration emergencies and why they are important, I thought I would just sort of walk us through just really quickly. Basically, how this would work is Soil and Water Conservation District has made a request that we consider declaring a state of drought emergency. Basically, what this is if we decide to move forward, this paperwork would essentially go up to the governor's office. We would be making a request of Governor Brown to issue a drought declaration for the county, and further kick it up to our federal partners and basically ask for them to declare us also within a drought. And that would allow our local producers who are being impacted by the lack of precipitation this year to access some of those federal funds. Did I get that right, Herb?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So Herb, I don't know if you want to walk the commissioners through what led or what the conditions are right now that you guys are seeing and why you're making the request of us, despite the fact that it rained last night and yesterday.
Sure. Thank you, Judge Farrar, and good afternoon, commissioners. I do feel a little silly talking about drought right now, looking out the window at puddles in the streets and it's spitting rain here in Condon. But we always keep an eye on the snowpack, and we had pretty good snowpack until it just started heating up, and we watched it drop and drop and drop. And I've never seen it at 0% for the John Day Basin in May. I've never seen a D3 extreme drought in May. Last one of these that we put to the county was in August. So it's extraordinary conditions. This rain that we got is gonna, hopefully stop total crop failure. Irrigators are already running out of water. We're just super behind. We should have close to 6 inches of rain by this time this year, and I think we're at 3.5. So, and then the projections are not good either. They're projecting extended drought. They're projecting higher than normal temperatures for the next 3 months and lower than normal precipitation. So although we did get this rain, we would have to receive an extreme amount of precipitation through July to make up what we haven't got. So that's where we are. I don't have any good news even with this rain. We're kind of in a bad spot. When you look at the Oregon drought map, there's just a big giant swath of red through most of Gilliam County and portions of Wasco, Wheeler, and Sherman, and Morrow, I guess. That's what I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, and I should note that there are, I believe some of the southern counties, maybe Lake, have already declared a drought emergency and got that declaration from the governor. So, so we're in the same boat as some of our southern counties as well, just to put that context in place. Questions for Herb?
I don't have any questions.
Do we have a motion?
I would make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-16 as presented.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2020-16 as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thanks, Herb. Sort of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Herb.
Next time, come with good good news.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 6.6, award bid for Ardent Mills door replacement project. So this is those ongoing maintenance needs at Ardent Mills. As you guys remember, back in August, we had approved a professional services agreement with Pillar Consulting, with Jeff, to do engineering and project management for any maintenance needs. Pillar issued an RFP for the front door, I believe, at Ardent Mills, and solicited bids directly from from 4 different contractors, which you see in your packet. We didn't have any bids received by the deadline. Cooper Construction and Dave Boyce declined in writing. China Creek declined verbally. And then Rutherford Construction actually later came in and submitted a bid on May 4th in the amount of $7,200. So Pillar, Jeff is recommending that we go ahead and award that bid to Rutherford. And then Sherry, I don't know if you wanted to talk to or put on the record Jeff's communication about what the door might actually end up looking like.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that. The employees at the management at Ardent Mills asking that maybe the door be just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, just because it is their front door, the front door to their business, rather than just a metal door. And Jeff Schott is looking into that. His concern was that that might make it just a little bit more expensive, and they might be coming back to ask for just a little bit more money in case it does become a little more. And I agree with the management there that it is the first viewing of what their business is, and it would be nice if anything but the wooden door that was there that did not last and wasn't really industrial enough, but yeah.
So what we would be expecting is if we approve the bid today, that there may be a change order in essence. Once Jeff does his due diligence, there may be a change order that comes back to us, is what I think what we're trying to say.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. Interpreting for me. Did you have any questions, Commissioner Weatherall?
Sorry, I'm muted. No, I didn't.
We've been working on this for quite some time. There's several doors at Ardent Mills that needed to be replaced, and so this has been going on for a while. It's really been necessary. The door doesn't close properly, and so it's really something we need. So I will propose the motion. I move to award the contract for the replacement project at the Ardent Mills facility to Rutherford Construction in the amount of $7,200 per the bid dated May 4th, 2020.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we award the contract for the door replacement project at Ardent Mills facility to Rutherford Construction in the amount of $7,200 per the bid dated May 4th, 2020. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so now we're down to announcements and next meeting. So for folks who are watching at home, this morning the Budget Committee held its first hearing for the upcoming fiscal year budget. We will have a second meeting next Wednesday, starting at 8 a.m. That will be held over Zoom. And so for folks who want that dial-in information, that is available on the county's website. So we'll start at 8. I'm not sure how long we'll last, but we will be hearing from some of our departments about their specific requests. And I think we'll also be taking a look at the competitive grant applications and making some preliminary funding decisions on those. So put that on your calendar if you're interested in watching. And then the next county court meeting is scheduled for June 3rd. We are still working internally on a reopening plan for the courthouse, but it is not out of the realm of possibility that we will be open to the public by June 3rd. So I just want to sort of flag that. At this point, I'm not sure whether the June 3rd meeting will be held via Zoom or whether we will be back in the courtroom holding in-person meetings. So, but we will be meeting on June 3rd, and we'll let folks know once we have a reopening plan for the building, whether that will be held over Zoom or whether that will be in person. Any other announcements or things that, commissioners, anything else going on? We haven't been putting court reports on, but this would be the time if you guys have anything you want to update folks on.
Yeah, NORCOR board will be meeting on Thursday at 10 a.m. That'll be budget, and then our regular meeting. If anyone's interested in that, that will be virtual. You can find that on.
Great. Leslie, anything from you?
It's just been doing the weekly COVID calls, and then public health meetings. They've increased in frequency with all of this, but that's about it.
And they already put their budget together, right?
Yes, we actually got ours done very early.
Bragging.
It really didn't have anything to do with me.
And then the other thing that I am anticipating is that Frontier Telenet will likely have a meeting probably later this week. I had gotten an email from from Lynn, but I don't know that we've confirmed the time and how people can log on. But basically, I think we're just going to be taking up the Roosevelt site repairs and the Cottonwood Canyon project manager RFP. So I think that is tentatively scheduled for Friday morning, but I don't have a time yet. So for folks who are interested on the Frontier Telenet stuff, that's coming. I have not heard from them about budget and when they're going to meet on that. So I will try to get an answer from Judge Morley on that one as well. Any other announcements or things for the good of the order?
No, I have nothing.
All right. Well, with that, then I think we will plan on, well, Budget Committee is next week, and then regular court meeting on June 3rd, and we'll keep folks posted on whether that's via Zoom or in person. All right. I will adjourn the meeting.